Hello, my beautiful Red Nail Energy community. I am so excited for my conversation today. So, we have a return guest, Ollie. And if you have not had a chance to listen to our episode, You Are Not Broken, You Are Becoming Whole, I would highly recommend it. We deep dive with Ollie and you get to know her a lot better. But we're also having a conversation today with Ollie's sister, Lacey. Lacey Heward is a Paralympic medalist, singer-songwriter, entrepreneur, certified health transitions coach with the International Coaching Federation, and emotional CPR trainer and disability and health advocate activist with lived experience with disability and chronic illness. Heward tells stories from her life as a reminder that life is not a solo journey and that together we are happier and more powerful. Her life's work is to tip the perpetual hierarchical ladder on its side and bring about a greater connection with ourselves and with each other. Lacey and her husband have several dogs and love mountain biking together. So welcome to the podcast, Lacey.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and welcome back, Ollie.
Thanks.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I'm such an energy person, and even virtually right now, I could cry. Like, I just can feel such a beautiful energy for the three of us together, and just especially getting to learn more about you, Lacey. I have had a chance from Ollie just to hear a little bit, and it just made me want more. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of starting at the beginning and give listeners a little bit of a kind of glimpse into your life and the impact that your injury had.
Well, my goodness.
Where do we begin?
So just a little backstory. I had an accident when I was a baby. It was just a freak accident. It could have happened to any child playing in their backyard. And that led to me having partial paralysis in my lower extremities. I used braces and crutches for years as a child and did everything I could possibly do to keep up with these fast, energetic, outdoor, dirt-kicking family of mine, and did. In our household, there was really no room for excuses. And it was either get your braces and crutches on and come with us, or stay home and bake rock hard cookies with grandma.
We all know which one is probably the better choice of those two.
So yes, I definitely wanted to be with my family, and just learn to adapt early in life. Sorry, my printer's going through some challenges right now.
That's okay. Can relate. We've
Yeah.
all got those, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh my goodness. So that has given me a really unique perspective into life. Going forward, I had some surgery that did not go well and left me needing to use a wheelchair for my mobility. And from that point forward, I really had a unique grip on life. I became a ski racer in my 20s. I loved it. I loved competing. I think the best part about it was meeting other disabled athletes that were competitive like me, had a fierce mindset and wanted to
Crazy like you.
exciting. Thrill seekers.
Yeah.
And that got me to travel all over the world and compete and meet people that I never would have had an opportunity to meet. And then at the very peak of my ski racing career, I got so sick and ended up in the hospital finding out that I had kidney disease and needed a transplant. That was huge. That was life altering for me. I grew up with a disability, so it was no big deal. It was just life per usual. But finding out you have chronic illness changes everything because it affects your emotional, psychological, and your energy level the rest of your life. So fast forward, I retired very early in my ski racing career from ski racing and sought out alternative modalities of health and healing didn't quite work out. So I eventually did follow through with a kidney transplant, and Ollie was my kidney donor.
Yay!
It's amazing.
She went through a lot to give me part of herself. And, my sister is somebody who is very healthy, would never need to go through major surgery if it weren't for giving me her kidney. So it was a big sacrifice, and one that I will forever be grateful for.
Yeah.
It is very incredible. She's an incredible human being. I am so fortunate to have the family that I do. I wouldn't be here. I would literally not be alive if it wasn't for my family. And all this whole combination of life experience has just given me such a wonderful perspective on the human experience, and a love and compassion that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, I think that ability to find positive perspective and kind of a silver lining in situations that you kind of do let it make or break you. You decide, is this going to be the thing that I just say, all right, there's no point? Or do I say, maybe this is the point, and maybe this is what helps connect me to people, and this is how I share my message and share my story and help other people be like, I thought I was the only one that felt that way. I mean, that is the human experience, I think, is finding that connection. And yeah, that's so beautiful. Ollie, I would love to hear, since you have a unique perspective, what was it like growing up with a sister that had special needs and was still probably more daredevil-y than you were in moments? But how was that, as a child? And then how has that evolved as you have grown up together?
I think that until you reflect on it, it doesn't seem that interesting or profound, because she was just part of whatever we were doing. Whatever we were going to be doing, she was doing it with us, and we would find any way to make that possible. So even on the spot, we're going to build accessibility into what we're doing today. If that is, putting you in a milk crate on the back of the Honda 90 with me when I'm 12. We grew up country. So, meaning like out in the sticks and country. So, we're talking about going in ditches, swimming in ditches, going on Honda 90s, riding horses, doing other weird things like pretending you're Little House on the Prairie in the pasture or whatever.
Or that you're a horse. Pretending we're horses.
Or all kinds of things that I could come up with. And Lacey was always game. And whether that was maladaptive, I don't know. I want to belong so bad. So I'm willing to go through some really real crap with y'all. So I think it's so interesting now to think back on it and the inclusive part of it. But in the moment, it was just, it's not even a thought. We're just going to make sure that Lacey gets to come with us and do whatever we're doing. Yeah. I think the part that we didn't think about was at what cost. Like, are her legs going to be all scraped up and like ripped up by the time we get home? Is she dehydrated? There's probably some real negatives there that we didn't take into account. And I'm sure that it wasn't a conversation anyone ever had. But she was just going. She's just coming. Yeah. Whether it's up a mountain or swimming in a ditch in some culverts.
Yeah, being an occupational therapist and seeing so many siblings come into the clinic at times and witnessing that love and consideration, that's the word that comes to mind, is like, oh, this episode is making me so emotional. You were taught at such a young age to consider someone else in a way that I think a lot of kids aren't really taught. It's like, dog eat dog. And you see so much nowadays with bullying and social media. And it's kind of like you're on your own. And so to think about the fact that, one, Lacey never was on her own. Like, she was coming whether her knees were scratched up at the end or not. That feeling of being considered is so deeply rooted then in your self-worth. Like, it's okay that I'm a little different. I'm still included. And then on the inverse of that, as a sibling, like, the first thought you have is like, how do we get Lacey there too? It's not anything about yourself necessarily. And of course, as we grow and evolve, like, we have to consider ourselves. But I think we live in a big world of not considering others and considering ourselves way too much. And so it's just really beautiful to hear about that. And knowing you personally, Ollie, like, you're always considering those around you. And so I feel like that's just a really beautiful quality to have come out of a situation that maybe you weren't expecting. Like you said, it was your normal, but you were wired to consider other people.
Yeah, and it is a unique situation. Not every family is like this. I've talked to many people that grew up with physical disabilities or otherwise and had really different experiences. For example, I know one person, their family just didn't do anything because they wanted everyone to be able to do it. And so rather than just kind of that pull to do more, it was everyone is going to stay together at home, things like that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of resentment occurs. And those are things that we have worked through in our family. Even just, my mom was gone from our family a lot. There's 5 other kids at home and she has to be with me in the hospital because I'm sick again. Things like that. A lot of the things that we went through because of the medical expenses of my accident, not having insurance at the time, sent my family into bankruptcy, medical bankruptcy. And we had to sell off a lot of the things that we love to do as a family: water skiing, cabins in the woods, and things like that. So it's very unique that my family has rallied, and we do that for each other.
Yeah, and recognizing that everyone has their things. I think it could probably feel isolating where you could make the list of the ways in which there have been sacrifices made or whatever it is, but it's so important to pause and look at the other side of that coin and know that, like, you are just as valuable and have added just as much value and have had times where it might not be necessarily a physical aspect, but that you've given in a way that is so important. And our struggles can often feel isolating, or I've had that moment of like, gosh, my friends are showing up for me for another breakup. Here we go, like Heartbreak Hotel. And every time I'm like, I'm so sorry. They're like, Mikhail, you are so easy to show up for. And you may not show up for us in the same way. Thank goodness we're not all going through heartbreak at the same time. But you show up for us in all these other ways. And it's not about keeping tabs, which I think sometimes we are like wired to do and make sure we're evening the score. But what a beautiful thing to just unconditionally show up in any way that all of you need.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely informed the way that I see the world. I feel that people have intrinsic value because that's what I found in my life. I was never told I couldn't do something, that everything was possible. It was when I went into the world that assumption got challenged. It was either you're inspiring and you're above us, we're going to put you on a pedestal, and you're inspiring, you're angelic, you're childlike, perfect, saint-like, or poor you, we pity you, you poor thing. And eventually I stop feeling sorry for yourself and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, even though you don't have any boots or straps.
Or just accept.
Yeah.
Accept that this is what it's like. Boo-hoo. We don't want to hear your, needs or wants or, What a dichotomy.
Truly.
Huge dichotomy. When you grow up in a family that's like, we're going to figure out how to make this work and we're going to have a conversation about it until we do, to a world that just makes huge assumptions about you left and right. And there's no conversation. And if there is, you're not invited to it.
Yeah, like everyone wants to put everyone in a box. Our brains want patterns. And it's like, well, you're not able-bodied enough to consider yourself fully able-bodied. Oh, but we don't see you as like so disabled that that's what you, and it's like, but I'm just me. Like I'm just a whole person. And what a difference if somebody that was maybe curious about that asked you, rather than like, well, I'll just pick you up and carry. You're like, oh no, I can get myself there. Like maybe you could ask me the same way I think we are in some ways conditioned to know how to do in certain circumstances. But the minute there's discomfort, it's like, you know, I don't know, like we just assume or we back away or whatever it is. And I was at the grocery store one day and there was we were at the self-checkout and there was a child that you could, you know, was wheelchair bound and had special needs. And another child, I was in between them, was saying to their mom, like, what's going on? What's wrong with them? And that mom was like, shh, shh, shh. And the other mom said, oh no, it's okay. We'd love for you to ask. And I'm sitting there in between it, just this beautiful interaction of like, the one mom didn't mean any harm, but she was like, we don't say that. But again, you could say, oh, why are they different? Or how do they move around versus like, what's wrong with? Of course, that could be challenged. But I loved that the other mom just jumped at it and was like, please ask. We would love to share what's different about our kiddo and like, you know, whatnot. And I think, again, if we just had more childlike curiosity and we were brave enough to just ask, people wouldn't feel so isolated and we could share our story so much more freely.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. And I have definitely been on the receiving end of a lot of those, either shushing or one difference that I noticed is for years having moms say, well, she has something wrong with her legs. And that's like their answer. And instead of asking me or letting their child be curious and coming up to me. And then I went to Washington and was grocery shopping, and the response was so different. Moms were saying things like, that's how she gets around, just like your bike. And then it's like, oh, and move on to the next thing. That's all they wanted to know.
Yeah. That's amazing.
The responses that you've gotten over the years are fascinating. Some of them I completely understand, and then others are flabbergasting. Like how they assume that now that you can't hear.
Right. We'll just talk really loud and slow. And you're like, why are you talking like that? Like,
I can hear perfectly well. Or that, I mean, the worst, I think, and the ones that are the most astounding to me are the ones like, oh my God, how do you do it? If I was you, I would die. And it's just like, wow, how wildly inappropriate.
Or I would kill myself. Wow. If I were you, I would kill myself.
Yeah.
Someone said that to me after I had just won Paralympic medals. And I just left the grocery store. I just turned right. I didn't even respond to them. I didn't even know what to say. What do you say to that?
Yeah.
It's so confusing.
I don't think there is anything to say. I mean, it's so inappropriate. It's like, I don't have an answer for you. You don't deserve an answer, honestly.
Well, and I would rebuttal, like, I would never want to live in your brain if that's the way you look at the world. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just, if anything goes to that degree, or there's no awareness of like, you're speaking to somebody that is living in that body, is living this life, is living this experience. So it is so inappropriate to worded in that way. And how different to say, like, I am so inspired by your strength and your perspective. Like, if I were to have something where I wasn't able to walk tomorrow, or I was in a wheelchair as my main way of transportation and mobility, it would be so hard for me to wrap my mind around that. And so watching how much it's just part of your day, nothing limits you. You've done it all. You're a better skier than I am, probably on my 2 feet. It's like, that's inspiring. And that's something too that is just like, wow, what a great gift to go around the world and be able to share that. And just reframing it that way would make all the difference. And then you would make a new friend in the grocery store versus leave being like, I don't even know how to react.
I never want to go back there.
Yeah.
That brings up a question for me. I mean, I have so many, but how do you bridge being a badass World Cup winner and being one of the first female Paralympians or skiers, sit skiers to do like the X Games? And then to live in our world where there's so much exclusivity. Like, what a bizarre, like, your brain sometimes must get so confused about how to be in that. How do you own it?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And it's one that I really had to grapple with once I became chronically ill. You know, once that became part of my everyday lived experience. You know, prior to that, I had so much judgment. I was in a place of, I was on the ladder. I was on the social comparison ladder. And I wanted to reach the top of that thing so badly. And so I judged anyone that was what I considered a couch potato, anyone that felt sorry for themselves, complained, and people that were lazy. Yeah, Ollie, I hate that word, lazy. And, you know, I was reaching for the top of the top. And I thought that when I got there, I would have respect, that people would see me differently. And I did it. I reached the top. I did my damnedest. I threw myself down mountains to get there, to fit. And it didn't work. It didn't work. And not only did it not work, oh my God, I came crashing down, just flat out on my face at the bottom, sitting in dialysis, having ginormous needles stuck in my arm, and surrounded by very sick people, the very people that I despised, the people that I considered couch potatoes. And now I was one of them, and I looked around and I wept, because I did not feel that way about them anymore. I knew what exhaustion was. I knew that they were doing their very best. I suddenly saw people. It was like I saw people for the first time, their humanity. And now that I've been on both ends of the ladder, I realize there is no fucking ladder. It's an illusion. It's a marketing scheme. It's a bullshit thing that we are sold so that we will not feel enough. Because if we feel like we're not enough, we'll buy more, we'll try harder, we'll keep striving, thriving.
We'll compete.
We'll compete with each other. We won't
judge.
We'll be separate. We're so controlled if we think we're separate. If we're standing up there on that ladder all by ourselves. But if we're all on the ground level, you realize no one's better than or less than. We're all just doing the best we can.
This human experience.
We're just.
Lacey, will you tell the story about the girl who was she would just be pulled along in that, I don't know what it's called, a travois, or like, remember this, you were skiing and it was this incredible moment, and it's so,
Yes.
Gosh, you always make me this profound story, and I will never forget it. It always is playing in my mind when I think about being valid, about our hardwired need to be valid. And go tell this story about this girl. So beautiful.
Yeah. So I felt like it was my mission to figure out how to equalize people with disabilities. I lived on the East Coast, and I heard over and over and over again that we're not going to make our buildings accessible because they're old and they're grandfathered in. Well, that's a load of hooey. There is no grandfathered in. But it didn't matter because I was just this one girl in a chair. Then that's how they saw me. And I just thought, how do I get people to see me for real? It wasn't the Paralympics. It's not like my sob story. What is it? What's going to get me? And I thought, well, I need to be a contributor. That's what I need to do. I need to figure out how to get all people with disabilities to contribute to society so that we can be equal. And I was coaching ski racing at the time, and I went up to the mountain and I encountered this person who had just come down the mountain with a crew of supports, and I said, hi, I'm Lacey. Who are you? Nothing. And the guide said, she can't hear you. She can't hear, she can't see you either. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. And, the first thing that pops into my head is Helen Keller. So, okay. Can I touch her? She can't feel you. She's completely paralyzed. Oh. I was like, well, then how do you know she wants to do this? How do you know if she wants to actually come cruising down the mountain? And he explained to me that she had this special condition where they really don't know. There's no real way to indicate verbally, vocally, expressions on their face that they want to do these things. The only thing is that their heart is still beating and their brain is firing. And it just threw me a giant curveball. I was like, I don't know what to do with that. And I thought about her. And I think it was a month later, I went up to the mountain and again encountered the second person with almost an identical diagnosis. And that's when it just hit me. Oh my God. I talked to his mom, and I just, she's the one that told me, people ask me why we allow him to continue to live. And she said, his heart beats. That's enough reason for me. And I said, I said something ignorant. I said, wow, that must be really difficult, to take care of him and all of his needs. And she said, it's an honor. It's a gift. And I left that mountain that day thinking, oh my God, it is a gift. What if he was honored in society as a sort of Buddha, that his needs are taken care of by others, to feel humanity, to feel compassion and empathy for another human being? What if that's his purpose? Mm-hmm. If there is a purpose to life.
That he is valid.
He's valid.
How valid we are. Mm-hmm. We're so valid.
We don't have to do a thing.
We don't have to do a thing. We don't have to, be productive. We don't have to be accepted. We don't have to contribute.
Mm-mm. We don't have to freaking contribute. What?
We don't have to contribute. Think about how revolutionary that is. Every single one, all three of us right now have something running in us today that we're like, I gotta get this thing done.
Yes.
I have a list I need to tick off, or like, I'm only going to be, valid to my friends today if I text them back, or if I, who knows?
Well, and I love the perspective of like, okay, once I finally do this and this and this, I'll be respected, I'll be valid. Once I win the competition and I become the best and all of these things. And it's almost like that quote of, you can either see that nothing in life is a miracle or everything in life is a miracle. What kind of popped into my mind is once you climb that ladder, Lacey, and you were like, I've finally done it, and you still weren't getting this external respect or whatever it was that you were trying to achieve, in that moment, you either say, I'm never valid, or, oh, I'm just always valid. I'm always valid. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm performing for and what I'm doing and what I'm achieving. Like, I'm inherently still worthy. I still have worth no matter what. And what a perspective shift then for maybe why you're doing certain things that you're doing, or deciding I don't really want to do that anymore. And that's not where my worth comes from. And you can come from so much more of like a wholesome, authentic place when you recognize you just hold worth, period.
Yes.
By existing.
So much
be authentic.
So much resilience. I mean, you could have easily gone the other way and thought, I'm absolutely not valid, and what that would look like and how that would feel. Where do you
did? I definitely did.
Yeah. I remember the day you told us that story about her.
It was like a revolution inside of me.
And I didn't understand it at first. I was like, why? I don't get her. I can't understand. You know, it was really difficult for me to understand, one, what you were trying to convey, because I knew it was profound, but I was just like, I don't see it, until eventually I did. And now I see it very clear. But that resilience in you, I mean, I know that you have had some really, I don't even know about your dark, you know, your dark moments of the soul, that some of them, but where do you feel like that resilience in you? Because I mean, the truth is, whether you want to be inspiring or not, you just are. Your resilience constantly is a message to me. It's constantly a message to say, oh yeah, well, boo-hoo, because what would Lacey do? And you know, I don't think you asked for that, but that's just from my experience that I go to this there's this message running somewhere in here that
I think that I had to climb that ladder and find out for myself what was way up there, so that I could discover, oh, it's not going to come externally. People aren't going to give me what I want. It's not going to come from outside. And I had to fall down and keep climbing from that place. And it had to be really hard for me to finally let go. Let go of the rungs. And really, it was when I lost my hair, which was during COVID. That was the last straw, because my hair was like long and beautiful and blonde.
It was
and you know, it was like this thing that I hid behind. And it was the one thing that made me approachable to people, made me pretty,
beautiful,
I would get comments like, oh, you're disabled, but you're so beautiful. Like the two are not synonymous.
Right.
So funny. Those kind of comments were so funny. But losing my hair, for whatever reason, we still don't know why it all fell out, was this last thing that forced me to say, okay, I can't hold on to belonging anymore. I can't hold on to the rungs of social comparison. It's time to let go. And that's when I started doing peer support and working with people in recovery, whether that was trauma, alcohol, drug addiction, recovery, and finding the work that I do now with an organization called Community Living Room, where we literally just hold non-clinical space for people to come and connect. That's like the only purpose of it. Just connect. And Ollie, you can tell us all about how connection is so regulating.
It's all there is. It's really all there is. We got it all wrong. Success is connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our connection and our understanding that we're all pink on the inside.
Mm.
We are one human race connected to an incredible, miraculous planet that gives us everything we need. Whoa.
It feels very real
Amazing.
and authentic to come from that place. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it's so beautiful to I was looking for a therapist the other day because frankly I need one right now. And someone said something like my philosophy that you're not broken, but there was also this other thing that, it's sometimes you don't need to be told all the things that aren't working for you. You just need to connect to someone and have someone see you and hear you. And I was like, boom. Oh my gosh. People come to me because I'm an expert on fixing them. And I'm like, oh, geez, that's so disempowering in many ways. I want people to be seen.
And get to that place of safety to really be seen. Because that's the thing, as any type of a helping professional, you are the go-to. And with that, there's this level of perfectionism. Like, therapists don't need therapists. And I don't know if you're familiar with Lori Gottlieb, but she's an incredible therapist. And her book, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, was so profound to me because it's this therapist talking about her sessions, but then going through this struggle where she's going into her sessions the exact same way her people are, being like, you're not going to help me. This isn't going to work. She's all sorts of skeptical. And then she's like, oh, wait, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I don't have to have it all figured out. And I think we have to bring humanity and true vulnerability back into some of these professions. And the minute somebody says I'm a guru and I will heal you, run the other way, because it's that is not the point. The point, as you said, Ollie, is being seen, having space held for you. And I'm sure, Lacey, why these community living rooms are so empowering, because this person that's here's the laundry list of what's wrong with me, sits and feels connected for 30 minutes. And that list kind of magically goes away because you realize connection is really kind of the cure to everything that you could be experiencing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That executive function.
Ooh, it's huge.
Another thing that I was wondering, Lace, is what maladaptive things, because even though we were as adaptive with you as possible as we could be as children, right? And even as teens or whatever, what maladaptive things had you believe in the latter? Because I know those are there. You being on stage and singing, how normal can we get Lacey to look and be, or inspiring, and then we can feel good about her disability? Those things were playing out simultaneously.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of those things?
Yeah. Hoo-wee.
You want to speak to those because they can be pretty triggering.
Yeah, and I think, I appreciate it because it is important to talk about those things too, because they were there. And
I think people feel those more often than they do the acceptance and that I'm valid as I am. I mean, really, we don't feel that every day, even as typical people. I can't imagine what is running in there.
Oh, yeah. When you're children, you're sponges. You absorb everything, and you absorb what you get positive and negative attention for. And you also absorb the reactions to what happens. What happens when I fall down? What is the reaction that I get? What happens if I am a superstar singing it on stage? And what are the reactions that I get then? And so, there was definitely a lot of that going on. Ollie and I grew up in a staunch Christian religion that was very patriarchal, and there was a lot of emphasis on the ability of men to heal you through prayer and blessings and shit like that. And I hope it's okay if I swear.
Oh, yeah, please.
Sorry. I was given a blessing that I would be whole. Now, what wholeness means to whoever is up for interpretation. My mom took it as I would be able to walk.
Literal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, literal. My mom is self-proclaimed vain, very vain. I mean, we had to look perfect. We had to look clean and tidy, even though we lived in squalor half the time. It was very important how I looked.
Squalor. I just want to, our mom was very clean. Were we poor? Yes.
Yeah, but I was thinking of those cats in the garage, and I crawled on those carpets. They were filthy.
Okay. Yes.
Squalor. It's been determined.
It's determined. Yes. Okay.
There was no clutter, and yeah, I should clarify. Our mom was very tidy and really cared a lot about that. She was a little bit OCD that way.
She would clean with toothbrushes at times. So
yes. Yeah. So appearances, though, were very important to our mom. And so I remember many times mom making sure that I look just so, and I'm putting my fingers together, like just so.
Yeah.
And would correct
squeezing
my
you into tights.
Yeah, like
squeezing her and her little fat legs into tights to try and to get to church. And wow.
Even though my legs don't move, it's hard to get tights on these little.
And I mean, let's be honest, I don't know how many hours I spent with those legs trying to get them in tights. As one of the oldest.
I have these big metal braces that Ollie had to put me in, and if they were just even the slightest bit just uncomfortable, I would kick them off. We'd have to start all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is such a great, like, I wish we would have just let you be. Just let you be. Why do you need to get on this straitjacket to go to church?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that, a lot of vanity. And then eventually
we had our other caregiver, our grandmother, was very much about what it looked like as well. We needed to look like the, righteous family.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal because, man, we were wild ass heathens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think probably freed you in some ways.
Oh, yeah. I think so, too. I definitely, and living rurally out in the country, being able to just wander and with or without my braces was very freeing. The whole thing about looking a certain way led to me having these awful surgeries and being away from my family. A lot of my trauma stems from that hospital stay. And a lot of my physical issues stem from that experience as well. And that was all in the name of walking again. I had to go through these big orthopedic surgeries and we grew up in Idaho, and I had to live in Salt Lake City, Utah for these long stints of time at 7 and 8 years old by myself. And they were awful. It was kind of I'm old enough now that at the time, children were kind of seen as be obedient. And if you're not obedient or you're seen any other way, we're going to discipline you. So even though it was a hospital for children, there was a lot of discipline built into the care.
Mhm.
It was
It
very
was such an
sterile.
institution.
Yeah. So that was an awful outcome of this need for perfection, this need for these certain elements in our lives, these blessings to be correct. It was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I read Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, is that right? And she talks about wholeness.
Mm.
And when I read that, I will never forget the page. I can see it in my mind right now. I read it over and over and over again.
Mm.
And I was just bawling. And I called my mom and I said, "I'm whole, Mom. I'm whole."
Mm.
She didn't get it, which is okay, but I got it.
Mhm.
I'm whole. We're all whole.
Mhm.
I love that book so much. I love Brene Brown. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And to be able to have that realization and so much healing, I'm sure, from navigating the world looking for wholeness and thinking, like, what can finally make me whole? And to have a moment where you sit in your own body reading this page and you're like, oh, wait, I already am. What a huge gift then to be able to navigate the world with that new found
Yeah.
understanding. And it doesn't matter if people don't understand it, as long as you do, you can try your best to share and help people arrive at the same time. But as long as you feel that, it's so empowering.
Yeah. Makes me think of a story. So I was getting my dance minor, and I was also grappling with the understanding about somatics. I didn't really know exactly what it was. I just knew that dancing was healing me through my divorce and being alone, and all of these things that I had set aside were coming up big time. I was 32 and I was getting my dance minor, and I'm taking a choreography class. And I really wanted to incorporate Lacey in this piece that I was doing, because I was like, oh, I'm going to be revolutionary and I have, someone with a disability on stage. And I'm sure there was something about me in there. But also at the same time, it was fun. My son was in that piece too, which was fun. There were like, I don't know, 8 dancers or something. So one night we're at rehearsal and Lacey's about to do this part that I have her do. And she's literally out of her chair being drug across the floor, very vulnerable for her. And she's like, oh, and I can see her. She looks visibly horrified. And I was like, Lacey, I don't know why, but I just need you to know to trust the process. I don't know what's telling you coming up for me, but I'm just saying, please trust the process. I don't know actually what it is either. And so she gets on the floor and here's this like dramatic music. She's being dragged across the floor. And then this like elated part where it's like triumphant at the end. But so we say our goodbyes after rehearsal, and she's driving back to the country. It's a pretty long drive. And I get this phone call and I'm like, weird. Why is Lacey calling me? I think, oh, maybe it's a flat tire or something. And I answer, and all I get, there's nothing really distinguishable that's like language on the other side. It's just these sounds. And I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? What's going on? Are you okay? She's like, oh God, okay, well, take a breath, pull over. What's happening? She's like, I don't really know what's going on right now. I'm just having a experience. And I was like, okay, oh wow. Well, okay, tell me what's going on. I'm right here. Are you? And she said, this moment changed my life. She said, for the first time in my life, I am okay in my body. I feel beautiful in my body. And I was like, oh, yay. I love you and I'm so happy for you, and just be in it. And it was just so incredible to be part of this process that I didn't even know was something that was happening. And I think that in that moment, there were so many pieces that just fell away about my life personally, my value in the world, me and my body, and then also how I see the world, how I see people in the world, in their bodies. And that we have this ability to feel wholeness, but then also to connect through our body in a way that we really can't in other ways. But it was so profound. It was so beautiful to be a witness of it. Like I felt really, really, truly honored. I have never really, like, here and there little breakthroughs that I have with clients, but I've never had an experience like that since or before that. It was really incredible. And that you felt okay, Lacey, to just be so vulnerable and be like, something's happening.
That was a beautiful dance. It was so neat to be part of a big group of people dancing together. And there was a point where I was like rolling over other people and they were kind of like moving my body in big cartwheels and these different things. And it was profound.
Yeah. And had you not been able to trust, surrender, allow, it's like sometimes to be embodied, we have to be so out of control. And that is that somatic practice. It's pushing yourself to the edge to be like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to leave the comfort of my chair and this existence, and I'm in control here. And then all of a sudden you get to feel the freest you've maybe felt through movement that's because of trusting other people to hold you up, to move your body. And in that, you get to drop in even deeper. Like, you were probably so present in your body in that moment and got to feel in all of these different ways. And to your point, Ollie, it is where you almost can't explain somatics. You can try so hard, but until you really have that experience, it's like, it doesn't really make sense. And then being able to release and let go of control to actually feel more embodied is so beautiful.
And to be touched. You know, so many of my students in my dancers and yogis with disabilities, they can go weeks without being touched.
Yeah.
And it's like this forfeit, it's clinical. It's like, okay, and I'm going to do this now. And I'm going to kind of like, you're an object. Like, I have this goal. I'm trying to put the tights on. But it's not a human touch in that way that when you're part of dance, which already just has so much emotion and vulnerability and passion behind it, but then you're feeling true touch and being held, like you're being held and moved by other people in a way that, again, it's like, it's so healing and powerful and a collective that can be felt.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, was being an adult woman using a chair is sort of a natural barrier. And you're right. There is this phenomenon that happens where you are objectified. You are in someone else's story. People can, especially in the medical world, people come up to me and just automatically assume that they can touch and move my chair. This is part of me. And it also keeps me separate from others. And that was a big breakthrough, because there was no barrier. It was just me, very raw and vulnerable, out there on the floor, rolling around,
Drug.
Yeah. Control was absolutely out the window. It's interesting because I think vulnerability, well, first of all, there is this false sense of control, right? Like this separateness. we think we're safe in ourselves, like being separate. Okay, at least I know what's coming. Being vulnerable, you let that go. But the reward or I would say the reward is significant, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Ollie has told me that you're an incredible singer. Is that something for you as well that has almost felt like a somatic practice, a release, an ability to embody, and kind of what has that done for you to really harness your voice?
Yeah, I've got a few of my guitars here with me, and I will just pick them up. And if I'm struggling to pinpoint what it is I'm feeling or articulate it, sometimes it's hard to put things into words, but music allows that to flow. And when things are tricky, everyone I think goes through those times where I'm just not exactly sure how to pinpoint what I'm feeling and what this experience is. In particular, microaggressions can be very confusing. You feel separate, but you're not exactly sure what just happened. And why do I feel separate all of a sudden? And what was that? That happens often, just, out and about, out in the world. And so there have been many times where I've processed through song, just getting it out, and then by the end I feel so relieved, like I've not only taken care of that artist in me that needs that nourishment, but also just able to let things kind of flow and be free allows those emotions to come out and be seen and process them.
It's a true gift and almost channeling of that energy in a way that I'm sure even at times as you are in that flow state, it might surprise you what comes up or what comes out or your own words, but it feels as though it really is channeled from this more collective space. And I think it's really beautiful that you've been able to find something that allows you to kind of even witness your own experience, but within modality, and give it validity again. Like, that was valid. I felt that isolation. I felt that it could have been from a glance or energy or something shifting. And societally, we're conditioned like, oh, everyone's just offended by everything these days. And it's so much not that. It's like when that's your experience and there is something that you palpably know was different, but it's not so aggressive that if you call it out, the person can't go, oh, I didn't mean it like that. And then you're left gaslit like I'm actually just crazy. I think that it's like to be able to give yourself that experience of witnessing, feeling it, putting music to it is such a powerful gift.
Oh, I love that. And thank you very much. Yes, I feel that way too. I love what you said about, I just feel like and wonder if as the generations grow, and we kind of get further away from sweeping things under the rug, if we're just getting clear about intention and getting more feeling into our feelings and being able to pick up on those subtleties.
Yeah,
because I know I'm not alone in that.
And intention really is everything. I've said things completely without intention of harming, and I've harmed people. I've hurt people. My words have hurt people. And it's a beautiful experience to be able to share a conversation from a place of like, I'm assuming you didn't intend to hurt me. And here's what was hurtful about that. And it's like, thank you for being safe enough to share that, because I would never want to go around with that intention. And there are people in this world that don't have kind intentions. And so to be able to separate in a way, I think is also really empowering and allows us to have these conversations that matter, where I'm not going to have the perfect words. I may say something that is just like, oh, I just put my foot in my mouth. That was not what I meant to say or how I meant to say it. But again, we're allowed to be imperfect. We just, if we're safe enough to have that conversation of what the intention was, it can change everything and allow someone else that maybe didn't feel seen in that moment to feel so seen and valid in somebody saying, I can completely see why that hurt you. That was not a fair thing for me to say.
Yeah.
That safety.
Yeah.
That's really the key.
Yeah.
is safety. That I'm safe to be where I'm at, to have the feeling that I'm having, and then I can ask the questions. I can get clarification about it. But if we're not safe, of course, we're going to continue thinking, oh, you're a, whatever you are, and you're intentionally hurting me, and I'm a piece of crap, or whatever we're thinking, right? But how interesting to go through the world and try and create safe places, or places that people can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's perfect for talking about disability, because of how vulnerable you are. I mean, Lacey and I were just talking about how, in order for the Americans with Disability Act to even be passed, there were these massive vulnerable protests where people were living in a building for weeks. They were pushing their wheelchairs in front of buses and stuff, doing these, things that we would never think that someone with a disability would do. And I think it was shocking for many people. And then how they came together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting what do you think disability actually is? There's different camps where it's like, how I feel is my disability, or is it society that creates disability?
Yeah. There's so many different definitions of what disability is and means. One thing that I want to clarify is that we use the word disability or disabled because it's protected by law. So I know that there are many people that want to shy away from the word disability, and I get it. But we're trying to change that. So the disability pride movement is, disability is not a dirty word. It's not a bad word. And we have great lives and we want to live. And so, yeah, disability, it's interesting because I'm doing a presentation soon, and I was looking up what is the definition of disability. Because I know what the ADA says, but I know there's also like the, oh my gosh, what is it called? The big governing body over the world. Do you guys know?
The big governing body over the world?
We're trying to forget about that right now.
I know. I can't remember the name of it. The organization.
Not the CDC.
Oh, WHO. It's WHO.
Ooh, the World Health
World
Organization.
Health
World
Organization.
Health. Governing body over the world better.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Uh,
I love that what they said, that it's just an experience of life. It's a natural experience of life.
right.
And it's not a matter of if, but when.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of if, but when. Everybody at some point will or have experienced some form of disability.
Well, and I think too, as you said, I mean, there's so many definitions because every single person is different and we can't blanket things. I'd love your perspective on, I learned in school, there was a big movement of person first language. So like, we don't say, he's autistic, he's a boy with autism. But my friend that's a speech therapist just went through a recent training where adults with autism are wanting to be called autistic. Like they don't want it to be a person with autism. And she and I got in this big conversation about it where it's almost like kind of maybe comparable in ways of like what, a certain pronoun that somebody would like to be called, where it's like, if you just care enough to ask, maybe there is one adult that's 30 years old that wants to be said, this is Amy, she's autistic. And then there's another 30-year-old adult over here, and this is Abby, she has autism. Taking 5 seconds just to find out what that person prefers, to me, is like what makes the difference. We don't have to blanket everything or say it's all this or it's all that. But Lacey, I'd love your perspective on the way in which you feel the most seen in being spoken about, in being, you know, titled, I guess, if it has to have a label to things, and how that's maybe evolved as some of these new movements have also happened.
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful. The younger generation has a different perspective, and they're tired of seeing films about people who maybe have everything except for their legs and want to take their own life because it's just way too hard.
Yeah.
That sends a very eugenics message that life, what's the worth of life? And so with that in mind, yeah, it's up to the individual. And when it comes to the law, it's one thing. When it comes to the individual, it's another. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's intention and just caring, like pause, consider someone else. It doesn't actually have to make sense to me how you feel the most safe. I just want to create an environment where you feel safe. And so we often get caught up in, like, again, looking for those patterns. Well, it's just easier if it's all this or all that, if it's, whatever. But really, when you care about someone, you will consider what helps them feel the most safe and seen and valid.
Yeah, it goes the same for all of us. I don't want to be assumed that because I'm a woman or because I'm a therapist that then I believe these things or I do these things or I like to eat these things or I'm going to behave this way.
Right.
Yeah.
No, ask me. Like, what do I, it's like, oh, all women like yacht rock.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to having those conversations and the uncomfortable ones.
What do you wish people would ask you? And another part of that is, do you want help? Like, because we're always assuming, us typicals are always assuming that you want. And I know that there have been times where you're like, don't help me, because it'll actually create more work for me. So
yes. Yes. Oh boy. It's a tricky, sticky spot for me because I want to be asked if I need help instead of just doing it for me. A couple examples, I should say negative examples of that are, I was wheeling down a hill and my front wheels, I can pop a wheelie like nobody's business. And I was popping and wheeling, and I was wheeling on two wheels down this hill that was pretty steep, and I needed to be, take it gingerly. And this person just thought they were being so helpful and grabbed my chair. And we both ended up just doing like a barrel roll down the hill. And when we got to the bottom, I am so banged up. My elbows hurt. They're on their face and they're asking me, "Are you okay?" And it's like, I was. You don't need to do that. You can push me back up now, though, because it's harder to get up than go down. So that's one example. Another example that, I really was pretty tired and I didn't have the energy to ask this person, but it really pissed me off. This person just started helping me put my groceries on the conveyor belt at the grocery store. And he had an upset look on his face, like he was maybe in a hurry, but I also made that story up in my head. I didn't thank him. I just didn't make any contact with him because I was just like, whatever, I gotta get home. But it really irked me, because it's like, what is that? What is that about? That's not helpful, unless you ask me. It's like making the assumption that I either can't do it myself or I'm going to assume you're in a hurry or something. It's just
because I think if you were typical, he would never even contemplate to do that.
And you could be going like so slow. You could be moving through mud And then it would probably be sigh and go to another lane or something, because like you're holding his day up. But it's so interesting to like invade in that way. And exactly as you said, and I think that's a really good point for people listening, your chair is part of you. So it's like if Ollie was kind of in my way, so I just moved her body out of the way, it's like whoa, like you're unsafe all of a sudden. And same thing when you're popping a wheelie going down a hill. If somebody yanked the handles of that chair and you're flipping backward, I mean, that's like picking someone up and flipping them upside down when we're just ambulating in whatever way we ambulate during the day. That is so jarring. And so I think that
jarring.
It's such a good message. It doesn't mean never help. It means just ask me. And then you probably would be like, thank you so much. That'd be great. Yeah. Throw a couple of those groceries up there. Like, you know, whatever it may be, depending on if it would be helpful or not. But to have no consent of what's being done is where it feels violating, I'd imagine.
Yes. Consent.
To not be considered.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not considered as a human being.
Mhm.
I am an object that is in your way.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's what it has felt like at times.
There's something about better than or in that, right? It's that latter, because if I was typical, you wouldn't even think I would be in your wheelhouse to like put my groceries on the thing.
Right. And you definitely wouldn't just pull my chair that I'm sitting in over to the side to get by me, but because there's somebody that has wheels and it's maybe seems more mobile, well, I'll just move them and move them back or whatever. And that violation of like, I did not consent for my body to be moved just now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tricky too, because I do need help at times. And so I've become a recovering people pleaser. An example is I got really mad. A lot of things happened at the grocery store. And I got really mad at this person.
I got growled at the grocery store today. So by like a 40-something-year-old woman.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
He was on the phone though, and I was leaving and we made eye contact and she was like, "Argh." And so I like jumped, and then she put her hand over the receiver and she said, "I'm so sorry, that wasn't you. I'm on the phone." And I went, "Oh yeah, of course." Got outside, and then I was like, that's not normal. Like that was in my mind, it was so normalized because she's like, "So sorry, it was to them." And I was like, okay, yeah. Then I'm like, wait a second, are we just growling at people now? Wild. So yeah, grocery store, you know, I mean, unpredictable place, man. Yeah.
It really is. So I was in the parking lot and I was headed into the grocery store, and this big giant truck comes right up next to me and then guns it in the parking lot to like make this turn, and I'm right there. And they make this circle all the way around and they're back in front of me, and then they cut me off. And so I flipped them off. I gave them and then they parked and they're walking into the grocery store, and I'm in the exact same spot because my backpack straps got stuck in my spokes.
Oh,
And
no.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, karma just kicked me in the butt right there.
You're like, "Hi, I know I just flipped you off and I actually really don't like you, but would you mind untangling my straps real quick? And then we'll just go our separate ways and pretend that this never happened."
It was so embarrassing. So there's this juxtaposition between wanting to be independent, wanting consent, wanting to be considered and respected. And then there's this other place where I have to be vulnerable enough to ask for help. And sometimes in challenging spots, like, "Can you help me up the stairs? There's no other entrance here." Or, you know, I've got to do X, Y, and Z, and I really actually could use some help. Or I just fell out of my chair because I hit a tiny rock with my front casters. And now I am flat out on the sidewalk. My chair has rolled away from me in parking lots and I've needed help. So there's this place where I feel like I want to be in my power, but I have to balance that with the vulnerability that it takes to ask for help.
Mm.
And there's this learned thing that you go through as you grow up, especially with a wheelchair or a disability, that you want to be safe, and other people are you're literally in other people's hands.
Mm.
They dictate your safety. People can do something to you, and you cannot get out of that on your own.
Mhm.
And that's a scary, precarious situation. And so when I have encountered, even now, when I've encountered microaggressions, it is so confusing to me,
Mm.
because my first instinct is we've got to stay in a relationship
Mm.
because my life literally depends on it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And my second thought is I want to be valid.
Mhm.
I want to count. I want to matter. I want to be considered. So it's tricky. It's very tricky.
Mm.
If people's inclination is to ask if I need help, please ask before just helping. Another thing is maybe don't. Maybe just don't ask.
Mm.
I always say assume independence, competence, whatever it is that you need to. Just assume I'm just like everybody else if you need to assume something.
Mm.
I will ask for help in the grocery store a lot because things are up high and I can't reach them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mhm.
Wow, that makes me think you're probably this guru in being able to teach people how to be vulnerable.
I'm not a guru.
Well, like an expert in some way, right? To be able to speak to the bridge. I mean, we all want to be vulnerable, but we also want to feel safe at the same time. So how do we do that?
How do we do that?
And the fact that you have to, I mean, literally people have carried you places.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've been on my back so many times, down like slick rocks and on trails, or, you know.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even know. I can't even get my brain around how that would feel to be that vulnerable and to really let go. Like I have to get on your back to get up this rocky trail. There's a cliff, and I'm just going to let go and hope for the best.
Yeah. But then simultaneously reclaiming your innate internal validity by also at times saying, I don't need help. Thank you, though. Or not even maybe a thing.
Yeah.
I don't need help. You don't need to thank them for something you didn't ask for. Like finding your voice in that. So you have this immense vulnerability in like, I'm going to hop on my sister's back. And like, there is so much trust and vulnerability in that. And it's in a moment of you consenting and knowing like this is the way to get there. And so I'm going to trust, I'm going to receive. And then I'm also not going to just be this person that feels like I have to people please. And when I'm going through the grocery store and everyone's like, can I help you? Can I get that? You're like, chill out. I'm fine. Like, are you okay? You know, I think it probably gives you that ability to also know when you don't need to ask for help. And that's some of that validity as well of like, you are so whole. And we're also all living this human experience of we all have to ask for help sometimes. It might just look different for how people ask for help.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Oh, I feel like I could just talk to you gals forever. I already have so many ideas in my mind of like, I would love to continue this. What's that?
I want you to sing for us.
I do too. Oh, that would be an amazing way to close, actually.
I hate to put you on the spot. Would you sing?
What would you like me to sing?
Multi-dimensional woman.
Ooh.
Or something that you is like at the forefront. Maybe even if you just gave us some of the lyrics. I hate putting you on the spot. You don't have to entertain.
No, I don't feel that way. I appreciate it. Yeah, I will give you a gift. Okay, I'm just gonna do it a cappella because I think that will probably work better on the virtual world.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a song that I wrote. a while back called the three-dimensional figure. Child, you've got to know what your mama says when you grow old. You can see, but I see you. Girl, you've got to do what your heart tells you. Don't bend with the foe, no. Stand for what you believe in, no, praise the fall. I am a three-dimensional figure coming in and out of your mind. I can laugh, I can scream, I can yell, and oh, how I cry. I have got my strength to hold me, carry my emotions under my heart. I can do two things at the same time, and oh, blow your mind. Woman. Celebrate the pain of your life. Stand up in the wake. Don't say for your strife. I am a three-dimensional figure coming in and out of your mind. I can laugh, I can scream, I can cry, and oh, how I sigh. I have got my strength to hold me, carry my emotions under my heart. I can do two things at the same time, and oh, blow your
Thank you.
My dog wanted to sing with me. Did you guys hear that?
I love that.
So cute.
Oh my gosh, Lace, thank you.
Truly, thank you. What a gift.
Oh.
So welcome. It's
Amazing.
a pleasure.
Well, this is to be continued because we have a lot more to say, and I know that there's so much more about your story that we didn't even get a chance to fully dive into, but I appreciate you so much for your vulnerability and sharing your story with us, and it really is a gift, and I feel so lucky to get to know both of you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on your beautiful podcast. I love it. I appreciate what you're putting into the world, and send my love to all of your Red Nail followers.
Yes, as always, you are so seen and you're not alone and you are so loved. And we will catch you on the next episode and expect Ollie and Lace to be back because we've got a lot more to talk about. So, yay.
Yay.